I am what stands between you and lunch, apparently, and I know we're slightly behind time, Barry, aren't we? So I will do my best to get us back and eating soon. So pleasure to be here. Not a Bristol City fan. Norwich City is my team. Any Norwich fans in? Superb. Let's go. Up the yellows. Right, so let's get into this. I'll do this as best I can, as quickly as I can, but we're really pleased to be here because as the guys have been saying, we have really been helping Cascade, as we know them now, to develop a set of service offerings that they can bring to you, their customer base, which will hopefully be exciting for all of you. I'm going to skip through some of this first stuff because I would normally talk about this to do a bit of scene setting, but I think Lisa set the scene perfectly well for what we want to sort of be avoiding here. You know, we've got to. I'm sure all of you in the audience are going to be in agreement with me that these 5 sort of things are all important to you in varying different degrees. We're probably going to spend a little bit more time on the first area, and how do you protect yourselves from ransomware? How do you be one of the 15% of the companies that doesn't pay the ransom, don't pay the ransom? But you're going to have to pay it if you haven't got options. So this is what we're going to get into a little bit. But of course, some of the other 4 areas around, you know, reducing cost in your environments, you know, and who doesn't you know, look at SaaS tools as a way of reducing cost? I do it in my personal life. I'm sure we all do it across the enterprise IT landscape. Everybody's doing different things on their cloud journey. So, of course, data protection is an area that you have to amend and adapt as you do different things with applications in your landscape. People are everywhere. We're all remote now. As the gentleman was just saying, our phones are a way into our organizations and our personal financial data and so on. So there's all sorts of challenges out there, and when we've got to try and integrate AI into what we're doing as well. So scary stuff when you look at the sort of challenges that we've got. Now, Druva is it started out as a data protection offering. It's morphed more towards a data resiliency offering, and I'll explain what that means in due course. But backup and traditional backup, just think about it for a second. It's a liability. It's got so much potential to cause you problems. Just think about some of the things we've all had to do at times. I mean, some of you in the room will probably, like me, have been in the industry for 25 odd years, have had joyful times architecting solutions to, you know, support things like Exchange Server back in the day, the storage, the backup, etc., that you need to do that. You've got to go and buy infrastructure. You've got to size it. And when you size a backup infrastructure, you take all the risk. If you buy too little, then you're going to be going to your VPs of IT asking for more budget. If you size too much, you're going to be accused of having spent too much money for the company, that kind of stuff. It's a bit of a minefield. And then how do you secure it? How do you make sure it keeps up to date with you know, the threats that are out there? I can tell you now that traditional backup softwares, they would have potentially you know, upgraded versions every 12 to 18 months. Now that is not going to work in the environments we all live in today. When you have problems, who do you call? Is it the backup software vendor? Is it the infrastructure vendor? Is it the service provider? It is just a minefield. So fast forward to a world where ultimately you don't have to worry about any of it. So all of your risks around sizing and where the infrastructure is are all taken care of for you. The vendor, the service provider, covers all of the patching and automation around the solution. You don't need to really worry too much about support, and we'll come on to how that works in this environment. You don't pay for any more than you use, and you rest easy at night. That's the environment that we are looking to achieve. Now, I'll just explain what Druva is at high level, and then we'll put the Cascade wrap on it for you in a second as well. So it's a data resiliency cloud. So you contract with Druva or through Cascade to Druva, and it is essentially taking backups of different types of environments that you might be running. And it's moving all of that into the Druva Data Resiliency Cloud, where you're going to be, 3 copies of your data, all that kind of good stuff. We run it on AWS. Haven't heard AWS mentioned that much today, because obviously a very Microsoft-focused event, but that gives you some interesting cloud concentration risk benefits as well, because you don't want to store everything. If you want to take some backups of M365, for example, do you really want to store those in the same place where M365 is running? Some interesting questions about cloud concentration risk. But anyway, the 4 kind of areas that the Druva service can protect are your, I'll start from the top left, those types of collaboration apps. Google Workspace, Microsoft 365. It is commonly understood, but not always accepted, that these are not, immune to problems and risks. And if you look in the service agreements for each of these services, they will advise you to do external data protection. Okay? Google Workspace has just had some problems, and I've lost a bunch of data going back a few months. It's all over the internet at the moment. A great endorsement for actually having a backup for that data. So that's one of the first things we do. We can also help you if you're building applications in the public clouds themselves. So if you've got VMs that are running in AWS or in Azure, you can protect those and store those carefully in the Druva cloud. You can also, across your data center environments or your servers, think about servers are where traditional backup lives, legacy backup. You need to put an agent on each of those servers in the data center and store it on some infrastructure. You can go directly to the Druva cloud from the OSs like VMware, Windows, of course, but you can also cover things like SQL and file servers and so on with the Druva solution there. And then there's the devices. So that's how we actually started out, as an endpoint protection company. I have Druva Insync installed on my device. If anything goes wrong on my device, it's stolen, it bricks, whatever, I've got a backup there. I can just recover to the next machine they give me the next day. No problem. We integrate into various SIEM and XDR type environments and tools, and we'll show you this with regard to an example that we're using with Arctic Wolf. As Druva, and this is the last little piece before I explain the cascade angle, Druva is a approximately 15-year-old company. We do everything we do at scale, and this is one of the key value benefits. So 6 billion backups a year, 300 petabytes of data stored under management, and 20 global regions. The same experience that a firm here in Bristol would have is the same experience that Barclays Bank would have if they were using the service. There's absolutely no difference. There's just a difference in scale. We have to be very security focused, and we have to get various accreditations for working with industry and government around the world, and mostly of what Druva does is accredited to the highest levels. Do very deep customer relationships in US Department of Defense, for example. So what we're talking about with you today, and I don't work for Cascade, so I'm going to do my best with this one, but obviously the Druva platform is what they have selected to power service offerings that they want to bring out to yourselves. So it's a next-generation cloud backup service. I think hopefully I've made that clear so far. It comes with the benefits of working with the folks at Cascade. So all of the areas they've talked about, their expertise around Microsoft environments and cloud journey, you can sort of just work through that expertise to deliver the service that you need. Backups are effectively unifying both your on-prem environments and your SaaS apps or your cloud data sets. And everything you get is the standard Druva service. It's immutable backups. Backups that cannot have the malware that we talked about executed on them whilst they're in the Druva cloud. We can back up corrupted files. We can back up malware, because if it's in your backups, if it's in your data, the backup is going to take it and it's going to move it into the Druva cloud. But CRIMs can't execute any of that malware when they're in our service. So we have the ability to then help you with the recovery aspect, and I'll talk more about that. But as you can see, you can cover your 365 workloads, and the Druva service protects Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Teams, etc. So it is generally covering all that environment. And there's standard service offerings or offerings that bring in ransomware recovery type service offerings. Now, at the end of my talk, I think Arctic Wolf are going to pop up and just say a couple of things. Arctic Wolf, similar kind of concept to, I think, the service that we just heard about. But the advantage here and the value, I'm not going to talk much about this, but we provide, with Druva, a set of alerts and so on that can be sent to tools like Arctic Wolf that you might have in your environment that are helping you assess risks. One of the big issues we see as a company is that when, as Lisa said, when you go in that random, oh my God, we've been attacked, and everybody's hair is on fire, these teams do not get on well within the company. The security team has to own everything. IT, who have maybe got responsibility for the backups, has just been told, do this, do that, do the other. And we've seen so much evidence that the security team doesn't tend to look at the backups. And that's crazy if you think about it, because the threats have now moved to the backups. What the cybercrims will do is they will go after your backups, because if they can encrypt or delete your backups, they've got you. There's nothing you can do. So at the end of the day, we do think it's very important for you to try and integrate, even if it's just more collaboration, the logs that exist around your backup environments and anomalous events and things like that we can see, and make sure that the security team understands those things. And tools like this will allow you to do that. So I'm just going to cover 3 things that the solutions will allow you to do, and just some of the value and key points that come out of that. So firstly, taking a cloud-native sort of SaaS-based data protection subscription, it gives you complete protection. You don't have to do anything. Ultimately, we carry all of the tasks and challenges around making sure that the right version of what we do is there. Everybody's on the same version all of the time. You can't get left behind. Every time we apply a patch or apply some sort of update, it happens to everybody at the same time. It's like the Tesla model of software code going out to the cars at exactly the same time. It's continuously optimized, so if something was to break any part of our service, we'll move it somewhere else and we'll move it around, and that's all done through the cloud operations that we do. Because it is a cloud-based service, and the way that we work with AWS means that everything is delivered in triplicate, so you have triple redundancy in every single storage location. You have, by definition, an end-to-end air-gapped and immutable service offering. Scale matters. Now, and it really does. Like we have some very small customers and we have some very large customers, but scale it means something different to each of them. If you suddenly just want to drop in an extra 20 users onto your account for protection with M365, that's just it's a mouse click and off you go. So it's extremely important to be able to just do that and not have those barriers or those restrictions on the service, and we can do that. And then more recently, we've started thinking about how can we help our customers that do come on board. So things like, what are the 5 most common tasks that people do in the Druva Cloud Platform around backup? And they are generally quite sort of mundane tasks. And the AI engine will now sort of effectively co-pilot you through that. So give you an absolute prompting to say, okay, would you like to kick off a backup stream? Yes, bang, and it just takes you through those things. In terms of response, right? So when you are struggling in an incident, you need to move quickly. One of the things that Druva provides you as an advantage is that it is monitored constantly. So we have a cloud operations business. We are a cloud operations business with 5,000 customers. So, we tend to see the cyber criminals and so on, if they can get into your backup, and they do, and the reason they'll get in is because they'll get your credentials somehow, right? They're looking for your credentials. Think about all the different backup software types out there: Veeam, Commvault, Veritas, Druva, etc. They're searching for these words. They're searching for users that are logging in with those kind of credentials. And if they can get into those, they can get into your backup environment and spoof you, spoof your administrators. So it looks perfectly normal to us that you're logging in and then conducting tasks. So one of the things that we see very, very often is that people will log in, credentialed, they look like they should be there, and then they'll start doing strange things like deleting 4,000 SharePoint sites, or that kind of stuff. So if you don't have a service like Druva, you're not going to know that potentially until it's too late. But because we're running the cloud operations service, we see that, and then we come back to you and we bring that to your attention. And we've helped customers avoid many bad situations simply through that. We're there with you and we're seeing what's going on in your environment. You can also minimize the blast radius of the problem at that time. Like you can actually, using some of the more advanced tools that Druva has around the endpoint protection, we can actually lock down users or completely take their network, their systems offline, that kind of stuff. As we've talked about, we can complement your ETR tools with data alerts to give you various different protection options. And we've got that visibility into the unusual data activity and logs that can be shared with your security analysts. And the final piece around the recovery playbook, like we'll just talk about recovery in a second, but as I say, allowing you to build a plan and a playbook that you can actually come back from and testing it with a backup service that is hosted in the cloud gives you plenty of options. So let's talk about that recovery. You can recover out of our environment pretty much any backup to any location. Many of our clients will recover to a virtual private cloud, and that is usually when you're in a site. Another thing we've learned by helping customers in many of these cyber attacks, you're not going to be able to recover to infrastructure on premise. You're going to have to go somewhere where you can spin it up quickly, easily, and that's always going to be the cloud, guys. So having the ability to do some sort of recovery to the cloud quickly is vital. You need to be able to search through what you're going to restore and make sure you're not just restoring the bad stuff straight back onto your network. So being able to search through the backups and isolate and not recover the malware is really important. And anybody that wants to go over to the Druva booth outside and just have that exact conversation, how would you help me not restore the malware? Neil can show you what's going on with that. And the final piece around curation of recovery. Now, IDC surveyed something like 350 companies around the world and asked them, how many of you had a cyber attack? The answer is around half. The second question they asked them was, how many of you lost data as a result of that cyber attack? And again, half of them. So 25% of the companies that they polled claim to have lost data. And the reason they lose data is because they have to go further back than they want to restore good copies of their data, essentially. So we've created a curation of recovery, like I think of it as a golden snapshot, which is going to get the best copy of the file that you can restore. Because sometimes the file's only a day old, other times it might be a week old. And then you can avoid as much unnecessary data loss as possible. So I'm going to wrap it up because I know we're all sort of hungry. And, you know, I hope I've got across to you what Druva is today. Customers are very important to us. And one of the things that we've got very, very good feedback on is the customer thoughts on Druva. Like Gartner Peer Insights has us at 4.9 out of 5, which is quite unusual for a SaaS company. Just think simplicity, ease of use, good people, it works. I'm going to pass on to, I think we've got a slide from one of our partners, Arctic Wolf. I think that's what we're doing. But we'll be around at our booth. Sorry I had to rush through that slightly, but I just wanted to get you out to lunch. And anybody wants to come and see the solution or have a chat with the Cascade guys, please come over and find us. Thank you.